So, listen, the Warriors are bracing. All the signs are there. And you know and I know, dynasties do not age gracefully. The signs of a falling dynasty are there in Golden State. There's a story out this morning. Bob Myers, the GM's ready to walk away. So what are the signs of a falling dynasty in any sport? Your roster ages out. The promising young players don't quite develop fast enough. The rise of your rival's talent, your conference, your division gets better. That tug of war upstairs between should we pay Klay Thompson or not. You go back and forth on rear view mirror, windshield, future, past, romanticizing. And then one of the last signs of the dominoes and the sky falling is the brain drain. Institutional knowledge walks out. Bob Meyer. As of today, there's two you have to keeps. Absolutely no question have to keeps. Steve Kerr, the head coach, and Steph Curry. Those you got to keep. There are three you should keep. Draymond Green, Andrew Wiggins, and Bob Meyer. You're not going to be as good without them. You're just not. Everything else, Jordan Poole, Klay Thompson, Jonathan Kuminga to me, it's on the table. Make a call. We'll talk. We'll negotiate. But if you look at the last 5 or 6 dynasties in America in all sports, the Patriots went from a dynasty to offensively anemic in an offensive league. Anemic. The Heatles got old and irrelevant fast. The Spurs, old, odd, and irrelevant fast. The Yankees, bad contracts, regrettable decisions in personnel. Young players don't quite give you what you thought. Old guys not quite as good. But in the end, too many bad contracts by the Yankees, and they underachieve now on an annual basis. They all, Chicago Bulls, if you watch that documentary, Jerry Krause, the late and great GM Jerry Krause, had his issues, but his whole thing was he told everybody, this is the last year. And it created divisiveness and animosity toward Jerry Krause. But in a way, it was incredibly unselfish. Go ahead and hate me. Use that to foster this intensity and energy. They did won a title, and they blew it up. That's about as well as you can do. Nobody liked it at the time. Everybody thought you have to run it back. Running back doesn't work. Don't hand out any more contracts. And I think that's where they are. Even in my business, and I've talked to my wife about this all the time. Jerry Seinfeld, last show, highest rated show on TV, #1 show last year. Thanks for flying United. Johnny Carson, last great show, last great week. Bye, I'm going to go play tennis. It almost never happens in any industry. And the brain drain by letting Bob Myers go. Remember, nobody does more dirty work than Bob Myers and Draymond Green. And so they may not be Steph and Kerr on the pecking order of importance, but this stuff rarely ends elegantly. Eric Spoelstra right now is arguably the best coach in the NBA. He was talking, I think sports are getting smarter. And the smarter people who embrace how they're pivoting are rewarded. I think, prime example in baseball. It's a long time coming. They changed the defensive shift. There's now more hits per game. They changed the batter's box. You got to stay in the batter's box. You got to pitch at a pitch clock. And so now the games are now almost 30 minutes shorter. More hits, more base runners. The ratings are up 10%, 11% Fox and ESPN. And the attendance is up about 10%, mostly up around the league. So you're just getting the same product more swiftly delivered and produced. It's very smart. Long time coming. Nobody needs on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night to be at a ballpark for 4 hours. You got a job, you got kids, you got school. Let's get people in, out, 2 hours, 32 minutes, get them in, get them out, let's go. Just the same product, more swiftly, succinctly produced and packaged. I think the NFL, you're not hitting as much, not as many hits on the quarterback. Quarterback's the difference between a good rating and a bad rating. Nobody wants to watch a backup quarterback. The preseason is shorter. I think it should be shorter. And Eric Spoelstra said this play-in game is actually really smart and has really worked.
I do know that play-in helped. Like, there were far less teams tanking. Everybody was fighting for it. those last 2 months. Every game was must-see TV, and that was in both conferences. So I think the league, that's probably the best thing that's happened in the last decade.
So the play-in game and flattening the odds in the lottery. It used to be like 30% if you had the worst record, you could win the lottery. They flattened those odds out. Now it's like 14 and a half, 15%. So those two have alleviated lots and lots and lots of tanking. We thought Utah Jazz were going to tank. They were a viable team. But here's where I think baseball just made really smart steps. You're seeing the reward in attendance and ratings and overall product quality. I think the NBA needs to do two things, kind of the same thing twice, to make it more about a quality league. It's becoming kind of a quantity league. And the truth is, you need to shorten the regular season and the playoffs. It's now just a battle of attrition. I mean, I could give you a list of all the NBA stars who have been hurt. It's ridiculous. If the Lakers come back to LA and tie the series with the Nuggets, let's go back to Denver, play a game. We'll know they're fairly close and even teams. You don't need 3 more games to decide it. That's 3 more games that Jokic, AD, or LeBron could get hurt. You saw last night, LeBron hit the floor. I want this to be the best teams advance, right? The best teams advance, not survival of the fittest. It's not a reality show. I don't want my contestants losing weight and, eating straw to survive on an island. I want the best teams to win. College basketball it's the one thing college basketball, and maybe it's too acute, but it does very well. They decide your fate. You play an entire regular season. They decide your fate in March in 40 minutes. The NBA decides playoff fate in the first round, second, finals, conference final, in 336 minutes. Do we really need 9 times the amount of basketball to decide the fate of teams? Shorten the regular season and shorten the playoffs to 5-game series. I do 3 games in the first round. What if you get an upset? We had one. Miami got bounced, or Milwaukee got bounced. We had one. Would it have been different in 3 games? We had an upset. If there's going to be an upset, New York beat the Cavs. You could tell by halftime of game 1. New York was better. You could tell very early in Miami and Milwaukee. Miami was better coached, better game plan. You can tell very quickly. Right now, it looks like in the conference finals, Denver's better. Lakers come back home, win 1, it's 3-1. We don't need longer series. You really don't. In everything that really gets a TV rating, March Madness, college football, NFL, once you get out of the group stage in the World Cup, stuff that gets big ratings, create urgency. Best teams will win. And so March Madness is 68 teams. They finish it in 2.5 weeks. In the NBA, if you count the play-in games, it's like 20 teams. It takes 9.5 weeks. And I was looking this morning at all the players that were hurt during the playoffs. Giannis, Embiid, Jimmy Butler, Kawhi Leonard, De'Aaron Fox, Paul George, Anthony Davis, John Morant, Chris Paul, Julius Randle, Tyler Hero, Victor Oladipo. It's not what we want. We always say this. The NFL's better when I never see a backup quarterback. It's always better when I don't see a backup quarterback. I'm getting backups. This is not survival of the fittest. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for the best players on the best teams, and you can tell. As long as everybody gets at least 1 or 2 home games, you can tell. Right? You could tell by Game 6 who was going to win Game 7. That's why we went on the air and said Game 7 is going to be Boston, right? But if Philadelphia would have won, so be it. It's not like Boston's perfect. It's not like Boston's not flawed. They've got arguably the worst coach in the entire playoffs. If Boston would have lost, and it's a 3 or 5 game series, they got a bad coach. Bad coaches don't win titles. But I think they've done a good job in this play-in game. I really do. I think it got people engaged. But I do think baseball's smarter. What do? Shorten it. Football smarter, less violent. Basketball, just reduce the possibility of injuries. You're watching these games last night. These players are gassed. You're getting the worst of Jokic by the fourth quarter. You're getting the worst of AD by the second half. Shorten it, quality over quantity. That's what I would do. But I think the play-in game's been a success. Big success. I mean, I remember a few weeks ago when we were watching that, we were like, those were must-see. Remember, didn't the Warriors play? There was
the Lakers played
game,
the Timberwolves.
and they're trailed, and then they came back, and it got like a rating.
Schroeder hit the 3 from the corner. But remember, the Miami Heat lost the play-in game at home to Trae Young, and then had to beat my guy, Zach LaVine. And LaVine and them, they were leading in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, my gosh, are the Heat going to blow this? And then, Miami pulls it out, and now the Heat are 3 wins from the finals.